All right, let's get into the flip, Pat. There's so much FUD. I mean, God, last night a new one broke that Jensen's stopping production of H20s. I mean, the information, by the way, is like clockwork. Somewhere between like 5 and 7 business days before NVIDIA earnings during the quiet period, they put out the abs. And by the way, I'm not saying nothing's been true. There was the mask issue was a real thing. It wasn't nearly the problem that they tried to portray it as. But they love a good hit piece during quiet period, don't they? And Jensen laid a little bit of the smackdown with his Monday to be announcement. And then, you shared another little tidbit. What did you share that Jensen was getting ahead of it? A little teaser.
He's definitely getting ahead of it by saying that TSMC is a great stock to buy, to own right now. I mean, if that isn't as blatant of a we're going to crush it, I don't know what is.
It's almost as much when he walked around and said Dell. Remember the Dell moment when he walked around the floor of Dell? And him and Michael. So Jensen really has figured out where all the gray area exists, doesn't he? In language.
He somehow can, I don't want to say manipulate Trump, but kind of get what he wants in ways, right? He comes from, 300% tariffs to, almost nothing, right? And he just seems to get along and be able to get pretty much whatever he wants anywhere all the time. He is amazing. He really is.
Well, off we go. So this one, Pat, there's a lot of FUD though, whether NVIDIA does or does not need China. So let's have this debate. Does NVIDIA need China? Or just, by the way, or does China need NVIDIA? Which are we doing here? Let me make sure I got that right.
China needs NVIDIA.
Does China need NVIDIA? Who's the for? So they fixed the coin. Okay. I've gone through an 8-month transformation and become a Greek statue. And yet they made you beautiful, and I'm still a fat pig. Okay, you know what? We have to talk to these producers about this. And by the way, I've never had a beard that good ever. It's like translucent.
Okay, you need to post.
Does that coin have eyebrows on it? Because I don't have any eyebrows. I don't know if people notice. Like I have no eyebrows. Actually, sometimes people on X make fun of me about that. But all right, let's get after it. So if I was really trying to do a thorough debate, Pat, I would just say this is absolute nonsense. Drop the mic. China absolutely needs NVIDIA. And it's very clear and it's very obvious. And there's probably the easiest argument I can make is they are literally lining up, willing to absorb up to an 18% price hike and probably more, frankly, to buy 4-year-old H20 technology in the spirit of not using Huawei, its Ascend chips, and its Cloud Matrix, which, by the way, by every specification, network, throughput, memory, all higher performance. And it comes down to something very simple. The enterprises and research, not the military, but the companies that are actually building products, services, and technology, and possibly some of the defense and military, have all built ecosystems that are deeply and relied on CUDA. And as they're trying to build and compete with open source and the world's largest language models and the biggest frontier models, and they want to be competing with the United States, trying to do it with CAN, the Huawei equivalent to NVIDIA, is not an equivalent. It does not work. They cannot scale it. They cannot switch. Pat, we can go back to the days when people said x86 to ARM, easy transition. It wasn't an easy transition. And it wasn't until later where it became easier and the incentives were big and the companies like the hyperscalers that could spend big money with big R&D teams could actually port those workloads over, that x86 to ARM conversion could actually take place. This is even harder. So for the next foreseeable future, you're going to have Xi Jinping and China continuing to give this BS political theater to the world that they don't need H20 and they don't care about B30s. And then we will see quarter after quarter every single one that there's a license to ship to China will get shipped to China, and they will pay whatever we charge for it. China doesn't want to hear it. China doesn't want to be called behind. They can't do the lithography. They don't have all of the capabilities. They don't have an NVIDIA, and therefore they will continue to be dependent on them into the long and foreseeable future.
Oh, Dan, you're just like all the people that have come before you and just completely write off what China's capable of doing. I mean, I heard it in the 90s when they said that they couldn't build computers. All they could do was do these, cheap through-hole power supplies. And then they couldn't actually do PCA boards, and there we go. Now they do more than any other country on there. And Dan, this is just another thing here. China actually doesn't need NVIDIA right now. I mean, first of all, they've got indigenous chip acceleration, right? They're running the same play that they've run on the U.S. For as long as I've been in technology. Huawei Ascend 910B, you've got Cloud Matrix, you've got BeerInTech that are, quite frankly, if you get them into a full configuration, I think Cloud Matrix is the best. You can get the performance, albeit you're sucking a lot of energy and you need a lot more space. But last time I checked, China was building 10x the energy that the United States has. And if they need more space, they'll just decide where they want more space. And if there's homes there, they'll remove the homes and they'll put people somewhere else. And I know here in the U.S. we're like hand wringing over a couple $2 billion that we're going to give our deep tech, but Beijing is pumping tens of billions into subsidies, ensuring domestic alternatives. I mean, BYD is a great example, right? Which is, I mean, will that car company ever make money? Well, it doesn't matter. But as long as they bleed the Europeans down in their cars, they bleed Americans down. Japanese tried dumping steel in the 80s, right? And we finally got smart on this and put like gigantic tariffs on it. Side note, Nippon Steel actually just bought all of U.S. Steel. And also, I keep hearing this CUDA advantage. I think, CUDA related to applications that you already have. And these are specific for frameworks, right? Now, if you have created your application, you're hitting frameworks, using models, you will have to move those over. But if you look at like Colossal AI, OpenBMB, things like that, it has the ability to break those out there. I mean, heck, even let's look at the domestic hyperscalers. You got Alibaba, you got Baidu, you got Tencent, already shifting workloads to homegrown chips, like we've seen, albeit 5 years later with U.S. Hyperscalers. And we've seen NVIDIA shrink, I think, from 30% from 75% to 50%, and it doesn't seem to have left a flesh wound just yet. So yeah, China doesn't need NVIDIA chips. If anything, U.S. export ban just gave Beijing the perfect excuse to accelerate building its own.
It's like a metronome. Put me to sleep with that garbage. Thank you. I want to give a round of applause that heaping, steaming pile of crap. It was actually a pretty good argument, but I also wanted to say, tell the audience if you believe that heaping pile of you just told them. You believe that stuff?
I think short term, China absolutely needs NVIDIA, and the way that they're going to need it long term is we're going to have to pump a ton of NVIDIA GPUs in there, get them addicted to complete the addiction to CUDA. And by the way, was it Besson or Lutnick that apparently pissed off CCP?
Lutnick. Of course, it was Lutnick.
They didn't like that. So, but by the way, it could also be this is just part of the negotiation. I almost don't believe anything between the U.S. and China and China and the US until we get to a real trade deal. Right now, I think it's just very good negotiating back and forth.
There's something funny is I used to like think that all the political banter was real. I actually think most of it's theater. Pat. I had this like sneaking suspicion that when C-SPAN turns off and they like are like, okay, you're on a 15-minute break, that they're just like fat, happy, giggling with each other, like, look at what we're doing. We're stirring up all these idiots out there. Like, maybe I'm a little bit out there, but like, I'm sure some of these people really feel this way, but I think some of this is just sociopathy. It's just like we're completely playing the people. Like, we really care. We really care. Look at us up in our turrets telling you how to be. Anyways, and you know, Pat, the most obvious one to me was when all those healthcare changes got made. Remember? And the healthcare, the ACA and all that stuff got created, but none of the Congress wanted the plans.
No, I know, it's crazy.
But I'm saying, like, come on, man. Like if it's good, then you should want this, right? And if it's not, because it isn't, you don't. So anyways, all right, Pat. So that was fun. I appreciate the you taking the tougher position, in my opinion.